The Atlanta Braves defeated the Arizona Diamondbacks for the second straight game, and this game could not have looked any more different than the one last night at Chase Field in Phoenix. I mean, I think you got to start with the pitching staff. Grant Holmes gave you a masterful performance when, in all honesty, I don't think he had his best stuff. He redeemed himself after a not great game against Kansas City last Sunday, and he came out and just absolutely shut down a Diamondbacks lineup. I mean, he had a no-hitter going into the sixth inning, which is not no-hit alert, but it's still notable for someone like Grant Holmes, who really, I mean, has struggled to go deep into games. Like, he's definitely a big league pitcher, but a lot of guys will question whether or not Grant Holmes is, better out of the bullpen as a long reliever. Someone who could just go give you, 3 innings, really only see one or two guys twice through the order, if that's more his role. And especially after the Kansas City start, I think a lot of people, I mean, myself included, I am definitely guilty of this. We talked about it on the podcast 2 days ago. But Grant Holmes tonight proved why he is starting every 5 days for the Atlanta Braves. He gives you 6 innings tonight of one hit ball with 3 walks, by the way. So definitely some base runners. It was not a clean slate by any means, but it really never felt like the Diamondbacks had much of a chance against him all night long. Their best scoring chance actually came against Dylan Lee, the inning after Grant Holmes left the game. So Grant Holmes, phenomenal performance. That will lower his season ERA down to 2.45 on the young season. And I know it says Grant Holmes. His velocity was up tonight. He really did struggle to control a lot of his pitches, especially the fastball. But the slider was working. He was getting some swings and misses. He was getting a lot of easy contact. And that's kind of been the Braves pitching staff's MO this year. They're not striking out a ton of hitters, but they're relying on that excellent defense behind them. And the Braves are getting, results. They're 6-2 in the first 8 games of the season, thanks in large part to their pitching staff. As you can see tonight, the Braves did not have a run until the 9th inning tonight, where they got multiple. Grant Holmes is the name of the category, but Dylan Lee, like I said, he probably gave up the best scoring chance for Arizona here tonight. 1 hit he gave up, but immediately just induces a double play to get out of the inning with, I'm trying to remember exactly who rolled over into the double play. And that Gabriel Moreno flied out to right to Raul Acuña Jr. Nolan Arenado flew out to left. Okay, so it was not a duty to apologize. That was Grant Holmes who got the double play, induced the double play to end his night. I listened to a majority of this game on the radio before I fell to Fred, who had Apple TV, that was willing to loan me out this. I have since watched a lot of the highlights for the game, but Apple TV, on a side note, Apple and all of these different streaming platforms you have to watch all 162 of your team's games. It's kind of ridiculous. And I know I'm preaching to the choir there, but yeah, looking at the bottom of 6, yeah, Holmes ended his night by getting Geraldo Perdomo to grounded to a double play, Ozzie to Dubon to Olson, and that's pretty much the story tonight. Ozzie and Matt are going to get a lot of credit. They managed to go back-to-back to win this game for Atlanta in the 9th inning, and rightfully so. 2 home runs. Ozzie's was just kind of barely stayed fair. It was a home run at all 30 ballparks, though, so that's really all that matters. And then Olson's was an absolute moonshot, especially after he got robbed by Corbin Carroll in the first inning of this game. And it kind of felt like if the Braves could have got on the board with an Olson homer in the first inning again, that they may have been able to just chase the Diamondbacks pitching staff all night again, like they did last night. It ended up not being the case, but the Braves still winning 2-0. Already the third shutout in 8 games for Atlanta. Looking at the distances, Matt Olson was the only batter tonight to hit a ball over 400 feet. This goes 426 into left center field. And Matt loves playing in Arizona, as you could tell through the first 2 games here. 3 hits last night in all 3 extra bases. Another home run tonight. And just, he's seeing the ball really well at Chase Field. Hopefully that translates to Angel Stadium later in the road trip and then Truist Park next week for Matt Olson. Someone who had a really good night, though, Ozzie Albies, the 3-hit night, including the game-winning homer down the right field line, and that was against Paul Sewald. So that's the second pitcher, or closing pitcher, that of some renown that the Braves have bullied in the start of this season when they had to get a run in the 9th inning. So first they did it to Kansas City, and now Paul Sewald is feeling the brunt of the Atlanta Braves bats. And it's not the first time it's happened to Paul Sewald. I mean, Arizona and Atlanta have played some insane games against each other over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, last year, the game that shall not be named for Atlanta, where they blew a huge lead. There was a game at Truist Park, a day game, where both teams just would not go down for the count. The Braves have come back in Chase Field multiple times in the 9th inning to win games. And tonight, like last night was crazy. It wasn't close at all. Tonight was crazy in a different way. The Braves just, in the 9th inning, decided, oh yeah, we can win this game. Bam, bam, 2-0. Give it to Rysell, 1-2-3. Easy. And the Braves are 6-2. So that's really what it came down to. My voice is a little bit deeper than normal, a little bit quieter than normal. I have been hoarse all day, and then I've been at a minor league ballpark and down in Columbus all afternoon. So if you could hear the strain in my voice as I try to get through this. I want to talk about Jonah Heim. I've given Jonah Heim a lot of credit. I think more than anywhere else I've seen. He started the game behind the plate tonight for Atlanta, and his streak continues. When Jonah Heim is behind the plate, the Braves have not given up a run. I will repeat that. That is in 3 games now. He did get substituted out of this one for Drake. Drake came in and caught the last inning or 2 of it. But Jonah Heim is probably the most underrated signal caller in Major League Baseball. You never hear people talking about it. And that's already kind of an aspect of catching that I don't want to say is forgotten about, but it's something we never talk about, of how important calling a good game is. And now, I mean, that's 3 separate starting pitchers that Jonah Heim has done that with. Chris Sale, Bryce Elder, and now Grant Holmes on the road. And that's against 3 separate teams. So I think Jonah Heim is making a really good case for being able to stay on this team when Sean Murphy comes back. Because even though the bat's not there, he's not getting hits, he is making up for it. And 1 is ABS challenges. He was fantastic tonight. But 2, just in, let's see, when exactly did that substitution happen? Heim was pinch hit for in the 8th. So he caught 7 innings behind the plate tonight for Atlanta. You combine those with the 18 he caught at Truist Park last week, and 25 innings, 0 runs given up for Jonah Heim behind the plate. I know he's not physically pitching the ball, but calling a good game is so important for a catcher. And I think Drake Baldwin, who I have a poll up on all of my social media right now of what Braves catcher or what Braves developed catcher would you want for the next 5 years? And my answer on the podcast was Drake Baldwin because of how just hard he hits the ball, how consistently hard he hits the ball. He's playing gap to gap. He's not trying to be a power hitter. He just hits the ball hard enough that sometimes the balls go out. The one part of his game that can be really improved upon is the defense. And really learning from two veterans, been Jonah Heim and Sean Murphy, on how to call a game. And Baldwin, I think, is really ahead of the curve when it comes to maturity level and being able to connect to his pitching staff to be able to call a fantastic game. But it never hurts to have a veteran like Jonah Heim in the clubhouse to teach him even further, considering that Drake Baldwin is a franchise level player for the Atlanta Braves who continue to be able to develop catchers at a rate that no one else in the major leagues can fathom. So I wanted to give Jonah Heim his flowers tonight because, the stats aren't going to pop off the page to you, but I think that that's something that's incredibly underrated for a catcher. And Jonah Heim has excelled, like superhumanly so far to start the season. Player of the game, I went a few different ways on this. But I decided it had to be Grant Holmes. 6 innings pitched of one-hit baseball. Allowed quite a few base runners, like I mentioned, the walks, but was able to get out of it every time. Really, even when the Diamondbacks had multiple runners on base, they didn't feel like they had much of a chance to score against Holmes. He was phenomenal tonight. And 6 innings of one-hit baseball will play every time. And the Braves have at least guaranteed themselves a split of the first road series of the year. In large part thanks to that man that looks like Kenny Powers. We're going to do a little bit different tonight. We'll do it a little bit more as we get deeper into the season. But we'll probably try to do it every Friday or Saturday night. We'll find a day, whatever people like best. But with it being late on the West Coast, we do have I think, all of the other games final, or at least about to go final. And let's take a look at the rest of the National League East 1 week into the season. So, out west, also, the New York Mets, they're beating up on San Francisco. That's in the bottom of the 8th as of filming time at 12:44 Eastern. They're up 8-2, so it looks like they will be able to cruise and win. Miami, the Marlins, they fall tonight for their second loss of the season to New York. So that brings Miami and Atlanta even atop the NL East. Looking around, Philadelphia over Colorado at Coors Field, 10-1 for the Phillies. And the last of the NL East breed, Washington, fell by a score of 13-6 against the Dodgers in D.C. So, looking at the standings before we call it here, as it is very late, like I mentioned, the Braves are 6-2, the Marlins 5-2. So the Braves do sit alone atop the NL East. Marlins are chasing them down. Something I heard today actually was you could kind of dismiss the Marlins if you just look at who they've played so far, which they're getting a series against the Red Hot Yankees. So if they manage to win that series, which they lost game 1, but if they manage to win that series, I don't think anyone can ignore them. But going back to last year, the final 100 games played total, the Marlins had the 6th best record in all of Major League Baseball over that time. So very young team, and the Braves, I do believe, get a chance to see them at Truist Park next week. So, be very important for the Braves to establish the kind of tone they want to set against a team that could very well push for an NL East, maybe not an NL East win, NL East championship, but definitely a playoff spot in the National League in Miami. Mets and Nationals both 3-4 on the young season. The Mets have had all sorts of problems, but I think they're too talented to be terrible. But it is the Mets, so definitely can always find ways to do it. Phillies 4-3. They rebounded after a tough start against Texas, and they beat up on the Nationals. They got a win tonight against Colorado, so they entered a little bit of an easy portion of their season. The Philadelphia Phillies do. They'll come to Truist Park, I think, in 2 weeks. So that'll be the first matchup between the Braves and Philly to start the year. That'll wrap it up for tonight's show. I'm Caden Sturgis, and I am very tired. These West Coast road trips are going to kill me, and we're only 2 games in. So I'm going to not have a long, elaborate outro tonight. I'm just going to tell you, thanks for watching. Go Braves. Peace out, and chop on.